Hi, I'm Gareth. I'm a psychiatrist in the UK and a medical director, and I'm making videos about the social network approach to mental health care called Open Dialogue that tries to promote greater transparency in the care that we deliver. I'm trying to make these videos so that there can be generating interest around the world in what Open Dialogue has to offer, and to try and break it down for people who are interested about what is actually involved. Today I'm going to talk you through a little bit about the background of where Open Dialogue came from and the 7 principles that try and describe what it is that we do differently within the Open Dialogue approach. So let's get into it. Open Dialogue was developed during the mid-1980s up in the Western Lapland, the north of Finland, in a small town called Tornio. And they took a period of around 20 to 30 years iteratively working with families to develop an approach that would really meet their core principles, which was about having conversations in front of people and making sure they included their families along the way. When they started to publish their research back in the early 2000s, they were producing radically better outcomes than often what we were seeing in the rest of the Western world. And it took a while for many in the world of psychiatry to cotton on to what was happening there. We've developed some big research trials since, not least the adhere trial in the UK, which we'll be publishing soon. And from that, we are starting to see a growing interest in what Open Dialogue is. It was through the researchers working with the Tornio team that 7 principles were described within the literature. There's some academic papers that I'll drop in below this video if you're interested in going into more detail about those. What I'm going to do today is just give you a short rundown of each of them, and we will come back to each of them in turn, I think, in future videos. Our first principle is this one of immediate help. There's an energy to crisis that means that people often need support quickly at a point when they can actually have the energy for doing something different and wanting a change. It's often at that point as well we find that the people who are important to somebody around them are most likely to be involved. Often it can be them who are the ones getting in touch with services because of the concern that they hold. And that's a really key part of how we want to work within Open Dialogue, of making sure those people are there and available within this care. That leads very nicely into the second principle, which is this one of social network perspective. So the first question we would ask as somebody comes towards our services is, who's important to you? So that person at the centre of concern would always get to define who that is. Often we find that's family, but that can be other people. It could be friends, it could be other professionals involved, such as teachers or social workers or probation officers, whoever might be appropriate for them in their context. And we try and make sure that we gather them all together to have conversations amongst each other, supported by the professionals alongside. Our third principle is this idea of flexibility and mobility. Within Open Dialogue, we want to try and meet people where they're at. That can be physically going to their house, or I've done Open Dialogue network meetings, walking down the street, sat around a picnic bench in the park, or in the clinic at the hospital. It's wherever feels right for that person and their context. But it's also about meeting them where they're at for themselves, and respecting the fact that it can take time for people to find the right words for the experiences they're having and to try and work through making meaning and understanding from that. So we have to be flexible in our approach as professionals and making sure that we're not forcing a time agenda, and that we're also not being rigid about the roles that we normally occupy, and that we can think about nothing being out of scope of our conversations. Our next principle is this one of responsibility. Responsibility can mean many things, but within this, at the very least, it means the professionals making sure that they are getting together, everybody, for the network meetings, and taking responsibility for actions that emerge out of that, agreed by the network. But over time, I've come to realise that this has a broader meaning. That in this way of working, the people who are important to somebody often find themselves wanting to step in and be more involved within the care just naturally through the conversations we're having. And bit by bit, they start to take more responsibility within the care. And that's a key part of why this works. Our next principle is one of psychological continuity. Within this way of working, we try and make sure at least one of the people coming to support somebody is maintained in their contact with them from the beginning all the way through to the end of their care, and is there present for all the major meetings that discuss the future of the care. We find that by making sure that these relationships are maintained throughout, that people start to build more trust with us, that they find they're not feeling the potential for being re-traumatized by constantly retelling their story from the beginning again and getting frustrated with the process. And over time, that we build deeper meaning and understanding through being able to carry that narrative from one session through to the next. The sixth principle is this one of tolerating uncertainty. Now, for me, that means arriving at a meeting as myself first. I come as Gareth, not as Dr Jarvis. I try and leave my professional expertise secondary and only bring it in if it seems necessary and helpful to do so. I try to make sure that I'm not occupying an expert position within the meetings. I arrive knowing that this is going to be unique in its conversation, and I can't possibly know beforehand what's going to unravel as we start to have conversations. As part of that, I need to make sure that I'm being led by the person at the centre of the care and those important around them. And that takes a degree of retraining and skill to hold myself in that position, to not be being led by my own agenda within that space, and to really have a degree of humility and hand over to the people that I've come along to support to help guide where we're going to take our conversations each time. Our final principle is one of dialogue and polyphony. Now, this is about lifting up every voice that's come to be part of a meeting, and indeed we want to make sure that they are all heard and that every voice is valued. We want to try and build up a number of different perspectives on the way that somebody's journey has got them to the point they're at. And by creating that more complex picture, we get a greater, deeper understanding of the issues that we're trying to address. But we also have this idea of developing dialogue amongst the network. And I think this is one of the most valuable contributions that open dialogue has, is that actually we often act as a key to unlock a situation that kind of found itself frozen, and that we allow conversations to start to develop within the network which haven't been able to be held before. And in doing so, we find those networks go away and have more conversations beyond the sessions. And those are almost the more important conversations that need to be had, because they're the ones that develop the meaning and find new ways forward for somebody as they try and work through what brought them to having this crisis in the first place. So that's it. Those are our 7 principles of open dialogue. Each one probably deserving of its own video in itself, and indeed I probably will be making more videos delving into each of those in their own right. I really do want to have your feedback on whether you're finding these videos useful, helpful, what questions are coming up for you. So please leave anything in the chat, hit subscribe, and I hope that you keep watching. Thank you.